Honestly, not a lot happened in this episode, so I wouldn't blame you for skipping this recap. However, I'm going to try to go over as much as I can, but just know that there's not going to be a lot of relevant discussion points. So with that stellar introduction out of the way, what did actually happen? Well, when we left off last session, the party was getting ready to conduct their heist, and basically rob Ivan Hydroga of an earring. This lapis earring, which belonged to a djinn, is called Wind Folly. And for the rest of the episode, the party goes into the museum slash house of Ivan Hydroga and attempts to find this earring. They are competing with the rival party, The Verdict. And these guys are real assholes. Now, obviously they want to get the reward, but they are essentially just an antagonistic force throughout this entire heist. The goblin in the group might be the worst, as Ashton tries to generally be nice to this goblin twice, but really just results in him getting kicked in the balls. I will say though that there is a great moment when the rival party is attempting to pick a lock on a door, and Marisha thinks quickly and uses her immovable rod to make sure that the door cannot open. And while this is just a great moment, I think it also highlights the immovable rod. Because, listen, if you ever want to kind of delineate between newer players and veteran D&D players, the immovable rod I've found is a great litmus test. How a person decides to use the immovable rod, or even if they use the immovable rod at all, shows a lot of creativity and workings of the game. The immovable rod is only limited by your own creativity. And now, with this immovable rod being given to the party so early in the campaign, I am fascinated to see what kind of situations it will be used in the future. Another interesting point though is all the weird quote-unquote artifacts that were found in Ivan Hydroga's museum. And I've heard talk online thinking that these are vestiges of Divergence, but based on Hydroga's personality, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say none of them are actually powerful artifacts. Maybe the earring is, but I have very little faith that any of the rest of them are actually, let's just say, working. Because it was hinted at in the episode as well that there might be a Luxin holder as part of the collection, but no real Luxin or power source. So I'm willing to bet that if there are items here, powerful items, that they're dormant or not fully complete, perhaps even broken. Because I just don't see Matt putting all of these potentially really powerful items within a museum, the party having the chance to steal them and then get incredibly overpowered early in the campaign and potentially break the progression that he's generally got in his head. Because with such a large party, any imbalance makes it harder to correct. Because in every combat, Matt is at a significant disadvantage. So if I had to put my money on it, there are probably no vestiges or really powerful items, maybe aside from the earring. Even then, the earring might just do fuck all, but that is a question that will probably be solved in later episodes. Another point that we should probably talk about is Chetney going feral. So, the Order of the Lycan Bloodhunter has this feature called bloodlust. And if you start your turn with fewer hit points than half your hit point maximum, you must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or attack the creature closest to you. And I think that this is a really interesting dynamic for the party because it really feels like Chetney at any moment when he's in his werewolf form can go off and begin attacking the rest of the party. And I'm wondering here if Matt will heighten this a bit. With Ruidus and the moons coming into play so much, perhaps something that Ruidus will do will increase the likelihood of this bloodlust taking hold of Chetney. Because I really did find this moment as one of the more interesting moments in the entire episode. But other than that, this episode just really didn't pique my interest that much. This video is kind of so late because of that, because I just really didn't have any interest talking about this episode really. And I really do want to give my honest opinion to all of you. And so I'm not going to sugarcoat it if I don't particularly enjoy an episode or find it very interesting. This is one of those sessions where it's probably incredibly fun to play, but not as fun to watch or speculate about. However, it is the cast's game, and so there are just going to be sessions like this one. For me, one of the joys of a heist session is the planning phase of a heist session, when the party lays out what they're going to do as they try to pull off the heist. I've ran a few heist sessions in my own games, and that's generally how I like to do it. But this was a very off-the-cuff, Bell's Hell's style entry. They are not professional robbers at all, and the group did next to zero planning on how they were actually going to rob this museum. And they really had zero intel on the museum as well. And that's partially on them, but I think it's also partially on Matt for not really giving clearer avenues in order to work out a plan for the actual heist itself. I mean, it's really hard to call this even a heist. It's more of just a burglary. And I also think this comes at an inopportune time, maybe because right now, the last session, we were so caught up in the lore, in Ruidus, about Imogen's backstory and what everything could mean for her, and it felt like just a cut in the overarching story to go and do this heist mission. But we were building up to the heist mission, so the party could not jump off and completely do something new. But hey, I realized that out there are probably a lot of critters that really liked this session. It just wasn't my cup of tea. But that's alright, because Critical Role episodes have a lot of different variety, and not every session is going to be my favorite, nor is it going to be your favorite. But I guess here's the question: do you want me to continue making recaps if I'm not personally connected as much to a session like this, or are you just okay with me skipping over one? Because personally, I feel like I can find at least something to talk about in every episode, but with some of them, like this one, I'm just not going to have a lot that I feel like I need to say. Let me know in the comments below, and next week we will pick up with the party potentially fighting 2 clay golems that were guarding the earring. And if you need more content to watch until then, check out this video right here, and thank you for entering the dungeon.